So, looks like we're back to the Boondocks, huh? It's been about a year since I made my Season 1 retrospective, and honestly, with all the effort that it took to make that video, I never knew if it would be popular enough to justify making a part 2. Well, I'd say that amount of views definitely justifies it. I mentioned in my Season 1 retrospective that Season 2 was arguably funnier than Season 1, but it lacks some of the narrative depth and great storytelling that Season 1 really excelled at. And that's definitely still true, but there are some other major changes between the two seasons that I want to address before we really get started with the review. For one, Season 2 has a noticeable lack of Huey. It's not like he's not in the episodes at all, but there are much less episodes that specifically focus on him as the main character. And even in these episodes where he does have a bigger role, a lot of the time his spotlight is shared with other characters. Huey was the foundation of Season 1, and having an entire season with him in the background is a pretty big sign that this season set out to be something very different from its predecessor. Season 2 isn't bad by any means though. Like I've said, it's the funniest season in the show, and you can really feel how they leaned more into the comedy side of things in this season. The wandering piano-laced background music from Season 1 that felt like an additional character in every scene, the way it changed as the mood of the scene changed.
You enjoy abusing people's illusions. I respect that.
Has been replaced with the same 5 or 6 theme songs that just play at the start of most scenes while characters just kind of talk over top of it.
Uh-oh, looks like someone called a beatdown.
Ain't nobody catch no beatdown.
The art style and animation have also changed. Whether it's an upgrade or a downgrade is up to personal preference, but it seems like the show has a much bigger budget than it did in Season 1, which just speaks to how successful the show's first season really was. Some of these changes are major, some of these changes are minor, but the end result is still a great product that created countless iconic and unforgettable moments, characters, and jokes that I still quote to this day. The first episode of Season 2 is called Or Die Trying, and it's legitimately one of the funniest episodes in the series. In fact, I'd go as far as to call it a
certified hood classic.
The basic premise is that Huey, Riley, and Granddad see a trailer for the fictional movie sequel Soul Plane 2, The Blackjacking, and decide to go to the theater to see it live. They also bring Jasmine along with them because why not? Also, is it bad that I really want to see Soul Plane 2, The Blackjacking? Like, I know the joke is that it's supposed to be a stupid parody, but I can't lie. As far as a turn your brain off, goofy black comedy goes.
Oh, Air Marshal 50 Cent, you're so brave to sacrifice yourself to save us.
Let me bit you.
Ow, wait. Oh.
But what ensues in the episode is that Jasmine quickly learns that Granddad has an extreme vendetta against the movie theater industry, to the point where he refuses to pay for snacks, seating, or even tickets. The family eventually get caught by who else but Uncle Ruckus moonlighting as a ticket vendor for some reason, and they have to sneak/fight their way out of the theater. In my Boondocks episode tier list, I only put this episode as an A rank, but rewatching it for this retrospective, I have to say that I was definitely on some bullshit for that. This episode is amazing. It has good action, great comedy, it's a nice little story where multiple characters get a chance to shine, really doesn't have any weak points at all. Also, another small change in Season 2 is that Huey's voice is noticeably deeper or maybe raspier than it was in Season 1.
I don't ever want to go to the movies with you again. Not after what happened last time. Granddad! Ed and Rummy are international criminals!
This is a change I really like because apart from further distinguishing Huey from Riley, it also shows that Huey is growing up and having a deeper voice helps to illustrate his wisdom beyond his years. Damn, Regina King really is talented as hell. The next episode is called Tom, Sarah, and Usher, and this episode is about Tom, Sarah, and Usher Raymond, who at this time in 2007 was still one of the most popular and best-selling R&B artists in the world. Unlike today where he's, well, I guess he's still kind of one of the biggest artists in the world. He even still kind of looks the same. Weird. This episode is apparently based on a true story of Boondocks writer and voice actor for Thugnificent Carl Jones being out to dinner with his wife when, out of nowhere, a wild Usher appeared and tried to steal her from him by smoothly serenading her like one of the Namor sirens from Black Panther 2. I spoke in the Season 1 retrospective about the Boondocks writers being able to predict future events. This one is kind of like that, but I guess in this case they already knew from experience. The episode plays out apparently like multiple real-life events of Usher singing to other people's wives in public, but with Tom and his wife Sarah. I gotta keep it real, I actually like Tom singing better than Usher's in this first scene.
Sarah's smile.
No, honey, don't sing.
Oh, won't you smile a while for me, Sarah?
That's called motherfucking bars, nigga. You know nothing about that.
Shout out to Cedric Yarborough. He plays Tom, Stinkmeaner, and a lot of the other background characters in the show. He's one of the true unsung heroes of the Boondocks, and it's a shame that he rarely gets the recognition that he deserves. But this incident causes friction in Tom and Sarah's marriage, to the point where Tom is kicked out of his own house and forced to stay with the Freemans for a while. The family quickly get tired of Tom's depressing simp ass, and they devise a plan to help him get back in his wife's good graces. I've watched a lot of television in my life. I've laughed at a lot of shit, but to this day, I don't think I've ever laughed harder at my TV than when I first saw Tom perform his own rendition of Let It Burn by Usher. It's in the running for the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. The Freeman family enlists the help of a pimp named Slickback to help Tom get back in the right mindset to regain control of his marriage. And just so we're clear, any episode with a pimp named Slickback is automatically
A certified hood classic.
And I love the whole bitch dependency kick that he's on in this episode. Truly amazing stuff from start to finish. The next episode is called Thank You for Not Snitching, which is a play on the cult classic movie that came out around 2007 called Thank You for Smoking. A rapper named Cameron, who you might know better today for his viral clips on social media telling his co-host to pause, became one of the first vocal mainstream supporters of the Stop Snitching movement after he was shot in the arm by carjackers and then faced legal repercussion because he refused to say who it was. He even has a famous clip on Bill O'Reilly's old show where he basically just laughs at Bill like a child for 5 minutes when challenged on his philosophy on snitching. Many people saw the Stop Snitching movement as dangerous rhetoric that was only furthering the destruction of the black community. And in a certain sense, those people are right. But it's important to note that what the Stop Snitching movement really stems from is a distrust and lack of faith in the criminal justice system, police, and government in general when it comes to adequately punishing perpetrators of violent or harmful crimes. As far as the episode goes, the plot is about Ed and Rummy robbing homes in Woodcrest so that Ed Onceler Sr. can sell the scared residents of the neighborhood his new Onceler security system. And he's not even really in this season either, which is weird and disappointing, but what are you gonna do? Riley knows about what Ed and Rummy are doing, but as the true real nigga that he is, he refuses to tell the authorities, and this causes a bunch of hilarious situations and problems.
Somebody get me out of here
They just mad because I'm out
before I
here.
shoot this fucking kid.
This episode is really solid. It has some funny moments and some nice satire. Overall, I think there are some better episodes, but I definitely don't mind this one at all. Episode 4 is titled Stinkmeaner Strikes Back, and it is yet another
Certified hood classic.
Damn, they really came out the gate swinging in the second season. This episode is the sequel to the Stinkmeaner episode in season 1, and in a weird way, it kind of serves as a perfect microcosm of all the differences in the show from season 1 to season 2. The season 1 episode featuring Stinkmeaner introduced the concept of nigga moments, and I spoke in my last video about how they're a very real and present fear that many black people in America have on a daily basis. The season 2 episode of the Stinkmeaner saga continues the theme of nigga moments, but puts a supernatural, Spawn-esque twist on it that perfectly encapsulates the absurdity of season 2.
What's good, Nyaka?
Ever since he was killed by Granddad, Stinkmeaner has, not surprisingly, been in hell. But what is surprising is that he's been whooping the devil's minions' asses like Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat since he got there. The devil, tired of this shit, sends Stinkmeaner back to Earth to sow chaos and discord amongst the black community, and also get some revenge on the Freeman family. Stinkmeaner possesses Tom's soul because he's basically a spineless in this season, then proceeds to attack the Freeman family while Granddad is on a date with a spicy Latina woman. I remember losing my shit over this fight scene with Stinkmeaner and the Freemans back when I was a kid. I remember going to school with a DVD in my book bag and showing all my classmates that scene on the school computers, and we were all hype as hell because that fight scene is hype as hell. But what ultimately ends the nigga moment is a moment of peace. This is a very quick note that the episode ends on, but it's a really important one. So many of the issues in the black community and the world at large are born from and worsened by a lack of understanding, a lack of mutual respect, and lack of real conversation. Stinkmeaner and Ruckus were able to become peaceful by bonding over their shared hatred of black people. And sure, that's a terrible thing on the surface, but even scumbags deserve companionship now and then. It's much harder to shoot, rob, or kill a man when you know his life, his struggles, his passions, and his dreams. But as long as we view each other as potential threats and refuse to find common ground, we'll always be trapped in this cycle of never-ending nigga moments. I guess season 2 can be pretty profound when it wants to be. The next episode is yet another
Certified Hood Classic.
Okay, I promise I'm gonna chill on that joke for now, but goddamn, these episodes were so good. It's called The Story of Thugnificent, and it's supposed to rival the Story of Gangstalicious episode from season 1, where the Story of Gangstalicious was a tale about rappers faking an image to gain money and fame. Thugnificent's story is about a rapper who truly is what he claims to be, but isn't able to tone down or hide his true self, even in areas and situations that don't really call for it, like moving into a peaceful white suburb. As I stated before, Thugnificent is played by Carl Jones, who was one of the lead writers of the first 3 seasons and also went on to create hilarious projects like the Black Dynamite cartoon, Freaknik the musical, and many other funny things. Also, if you pronounce Barnes and Nobles as Barnes and Nobles like I do, he's probably the reason.
We right here in front of Barnes and Nobley, nigga.
Thugnificent is also the rapper behind 2 of the most infamous Boondocks songs that you've probably heard in the background of season 1 and season 2. Stomp 'em in the Nuts.
Stomp 'em in the nuts. Stomp 'em in the nuts. Stomp 'em in the nuts. I'ma stomp.
And Booty Butt Cheeks. Or is it Moo Them Butt Cheeks?
Oh, shake it to the right. Shake. You boys cover your eyes. Shake. Got to leave something to the imagination. That's just showing too much booty.
Either way, Thugnificent and the Lethal Interjection come to Woodcrest and instantly start throwing crazy parties, blasting loud music, and tearing up the neighborhood, all to the dismay of Robert, Tom, and Uncle Ruckus. Granddad eventually snitches on them to the authorities. Thugnificent and the Lethal Interjection crew find out, and then the funniest beef ever ensues. The F Granddad diss track that Thugnificent drops in this episode still pops into my head at random times to this day. It's legit one of the catchiest hooks I've ever heard, and that's no surprise because they got Nate Dogg to sing it.
You just mad cause your ass is old. Motherfucker. First thing you do is just pick up the phone. Jackson living next to your home. Motherfucking grandpa. Old nigga is on. Motherfucker.
Oh yeah, pour one out for the god Nate Dogg. This all ends with a typical rapper truce, and both Granddad and Thugnificent agree to coexist in Woodcrest peacefully. A nice happy ending for everyone. But the story of Thugnificent would get much, much sadder in season 3. And now it's finally time to talk about one of the 2 banned episodes from season 2. Greatness does not come without its pitfalls and drawbacks. Season 1 of the Boondocks might have been a huge success, but it wasn't without controversy. Even today, the Boondocks' portrayal of black culture is criticized by people of all colors and ethnicities. Some black people worry that it makes black people look bad, and some non-black people aren't sure if they're allowed to laugh because they don't want it to seem like they're laughing at black people instead of laughing with them. One of the consistent targets of the Boondocks has always been the infamous and long-standing TV network BET, otherwise known as Black Entertainment Television.
No! Black evil television.
Sorry, Black Evil Television. I grew up watching BET. I remember watching 106 in Park with my sister all the time when I was a kid. I personally never hated the network, but I always thought it was funny how much the Boondocks writers seem to hate the network. They wrote 2 episodes for season 2, one called The Hunger Strike and one called The Uncle Ruckus Reality Show, that were pretty much all about trashing and making fun of the BET network and how the programming on the channel was only made to hinder and destroy black culture. The Hunger Strike is all about Huey going on a hunger strike until BET is taken off the air and all of the network executives perform Japanese ritual suicide. It's a hilarious concept that BET did not find so hilarious. And when they heard it was being made, they basically had the episode banned from television. And it wasn't until the season 2 DVD released and streaming services started running the Boondocks that people actually got to see it. It's still crazy to me how many Boondocks fans have never actually seen these episodes until recently. Definitely one of the best from season 2 in my opinion. I said in the intro that this season didn't really have many Huey-centric episodes, but this was actually one of them. And in true season 1 fashion, it's mostly about Huey trying to do the right thing and nobody really listening to him or taking him seriously at all. Also, I just really love the exchange at the end of this episode between Granddad and Huey.
Granddad, what do you do when you can't do nothing, but there's nothing you can do?
You do what you can.
Season 2 might not have had a big focus on these kinds of meaningful and sentimental moments, but it did have a great knack for throwing them in just at the right time. The next episode is called Killer Kung Fu Wolf Bitch, and aside from being the craziest title for an episode in the show, it's also a pretty good episode in general. We saw in season 1 that Granddad is still looking for love despite his very old age that, funny enough, is never actually confirmed in the show. Earlier in the season 2 Stinkmeaner episode, we saw that Granddad still hadn't given up on trying to find love. This search for love has resulted in a lot of less than ideal women coming to the Freeman house, which in retrospect just kind of makes the episode with Crystal from season 1 even more sad than it already was. Anyway, Granddad meets a woman who he believes to be perfect, only for her to turn out to be a killer kung fu wolf bitch. Oh, I get it now. The killer kung fu wolf bitch in question is named Luna, and aside from being a very funny and over-the-top episode, it also has a good message about women being caught in a cycle of choosing the wrong men and then blaming other people for their own problems and mistakes. Not to say that those men weren't awful, but still, sometimes you gotta own up to your own issues. Searching for love can be so fun, right?
Okay. Then that was the day Miss Luna let her girlfriend talk her into blowing herself up instead of taking responsibility for her own actions.
The next episode is one that kind of had to grow on me a little bit. It's called Shinin', and it's about Riley finally getting the recognition from Thugnificent that he always wanted and officially being sworn in as a member of the Lethal Interjection crew. And of course, joining a rapper's entourage comes with a big-ass iced-out chain. Riley flexes this chain in a hilarious music video performed by Metaphor the Great, who actually does a few other songs in seasons 2 and 3. But that all comes to a screeching halt when Riley gets his chain snatched by Butch Magnus, a local bully that gets introduced in this episode, and I kind of wish had more screen time in the series after this. Riley does everything he can to try to get the chain back, which includes fighting Butch Magnus and even enlisting the help of Ed III, which fails in a hilarious way.
Just think, these two grapes is your two little itty-bitty kitty testicles. Where is the chain?
I don't know. I swear to God.
Don't swear to God. I talk to God all the time, and God happens to be the one that told me to torture your ass, you lying, stealing motherfucker.
But in the end, Butch just gives him the chain back because he finds out that it's actually fake as hell. Similar to Or Die Trying, this is another small, contained story that doesn't really have crazy stakes or some great social commentary message to give us. It's just a funny little story about one of the characters' daily lives in the suburbs, and I think those kind of episodes are what season 2 does the best. The next episode is another
Certified Hood Classic.
This episode is called Ballin', and again, it's pretty much all about Riley. Season 1 is definitely mainly focused on Huey and his whole arc that I discussed in my last video. Season 1 also has a good amount of time devoted to Granddad as well, but Riley kind of gets the short end of the stick in that season, with only about 2 or 3 episodes actually giving him the spotlight. Season 2 has at least 5 Riley-focused episodes, and in my opinion, Ballin' is the best of the bunch. There's not much to say about Ballin' other than it's f***ing hilarious. It's a great small neighborhood story, which I always love, and it introduces one of the funniest characters in the show, Cindy C. Murph McPherson.
Just mad 'cause I'm styling on you.
In my season 1 video, I spoke about Jasmine being Huey's supportive confidant. It's fitting then that if Riley has a female friend as well, that it would be the most gangster, cold-blooded little white girl you ever saw. The cold open with Riley dreaming he was actually in the NBA is one of the greatest bits in Boondocks history. From a pure comedy aspect, this episode might be the funniest in the entire series. I go back to it all the time just for a good laugh. The next episode is called Invasions of the Katrinas. Hurricane Katrina was a truly devastating and disheartening tragedy that exposed a complete failure and lack of preparedness from FEMA and the US government. I remember being a kid in the mid-2000s who was just starting to become aware of major world events and politics, and this was one of the first events that I remember that told me, maybe America's kind of f***ed up. So when I saw that there was going to be an episode in the Boondocks 2 years later that explored Hurricane Katrina, I was really excited. Unfortunately, this is probably one of my least favorite episodes in this series. Definitely one of my least favorite episodes in season 2. It's okay. I mean, Lil Wayne is in it. Cedric the Entertainer is kind of funny and as Granddad's second cousin. It has moments, but this is one of the first Boondocks episodes that really left me feeling disappointed. I really wish I had more to say about it, but yeah. This one is just kinda here. The next episode is called The Uncle Ruckus Reality Show, and it's the second of 2 banned episodes. This one is special because this is probably the only instance I can think of where a TV show made an entire episode about dissing a former writer. Rappers, athletes, and YouTubers diss each other all the time, but cartoon writers dissing each other is fucking wild to me. The man being dissed in this episode, and also the other banned episode to a certain extent, The Hunger Strike, is Reginald Hudlin. You might remember seeing his name in the opening credits of Season 1 and even Season 2 as an executive producer. According to the DVD commentary, Reggie and the other writers didn't exactly see eye to eye on a lot of things, and most of them saw him as a pretty corny-ass motherfucker. So much so that they decided to make him a character in the show and just shit on him relentlessly. Now, when Reggie and the heads at BET heard that this was happening, they went to Adult Swim and got them to shut that down immediately. Seriously, if you happen to have the Boondocks Season 2 DVD, you should definitely check out the commentary from Aaron Magruder, Carl Jones, and Rodney Barnes. They're fucking hilarious, and hearing them try to tread lightly while discussing the situation is great. Anyway, the episode is about 10% BET slander and about 90% Uncle Ruckus being as racist as humanly possible. And I think that's something that any true Boondocks fan can really get behind.
Is this the kind of shit you niggas put on your feet nowadays? It look like a damn astronaut shoot. I'm black. I'm not walking to the moon. I'm walking to the liquor store.
The next episode is called Home Alone. And honestly, I don't have much to say about this one either. It's not bad. I especially enjoy seeing Huey and Riley's toxic brotherly relationship play out in such an extreme way, with Huey basically making Riley a prisoner in his own home while Granddad is away on his Do It Big trip, without Tom, I should add. It reminds me a lot of that Season 1 episode, Let's Nap Oprah, and how they were constantly fighting each other and trying to scheme to get ahead of one another. There's a lot of funny moments, especially on the Granddad side, but something about this episode just didn't quite hit the way I wish it did. I do really love the ending though, with Granddad coming home and both he and the boys realizing just how much they miss, love, and need each other. But other than that, I'm just kinda meh on this one. But now we return with yet another
Certified Hood Classic.
The episode titled The S Word is all about a real news clip that went viral back in the 2000s. It's of a white teacher calling a black student the N-word while in class. And I know that sounds awful without the proper context, but with the proper context, it's one of the greatest things ever.
Get away from the door, nigga.
Back in the day, watching this episode and then finding out shortly after that it was based on a true story just blew my mind. This would actually become a trend of the show going forward. Some viral internet clip blows up and the next thing you know, it's being spoofed on the Boondocks. Is it kind of lazy writing? Maybe, but just like everything else in Season 2, I don't really care because the end result is just funny as hell. Riley plays the black student who gets called the N-word, and his teacher is played by the hilarious white man Fred Willard. I never knew I needed to hear Fred Willard say nigga so many times, but now I'm so glad that I have.
Nigga this, nigga that, nigga please, bitch nigga, have you lost your mind? Nigga, check that hoe. Nigga, you bullshitting, break yourself, nigga.
Oh yeah, pour one out for the god Fred Willard. This episode also has a good joke about Ann Coulter secretly being a ratchet hood rat who lies about being conservative just to make money. It also features a fake Al Sharpton parody named Rollo Goodlove, played by CeeLo Green, who basically is just an opportunistic snake in the grass who uses the oppression and trauma of others to sell his own bullshit. In the black community, as well as all minority communities, this is an all too consistent presence. And I guess the Boondocks writers aren't too big of fans of Big Al. The writers were really coming for everybody in Season 2. God damn, BET, Usher, Al Sharpton, Ann Coulter, maybe they deserve to be banned. Oh yeah, pour one out for CeeLo Green's career too, I guess. The next episode is a really dope concept. It's called The Story of Catcher Freeman, and it's basically 3 different perspectives of an American slave epic narrated by Granddad, Ruckus, and Huey respectively. Granddad's version being like what a standard Hollywood depiction of a slave movie would be like. Ruckus's version being like a racist version of a slave film. And then Huey's feeling like a legitimate look into what it would be like if the Boondocks writers actually made their own large-scale slave rebellion flick. I'm not the first person to make this comparison, but just to put it out there, a good movie can take about 5 years to write, produce, shoot, edit, and release. And Django Unchained released about 5 years after this episode first aired, and that Samuel L. Jackson character seems mighty familiar to another white man loving black guy I know. I'm just saying, the influence of the Boondocks runs a lot deeper than people might think. But this episode is great from start to finish. Mostly funny, but also has some great action sequences, which is another area that Season 2 really improved upon from the first. But now we finally reach the finale of Season 2, the story of Gangstalicious Part 2. The story of Gangstalicious Part 1 was one of the standout episodes from Season 1. Since the events of the first episode, Gangstalicious has kept in touch with Riley here and there, mostly just by giving him gifts and a lot of other free shit. Riley doesn't think anything of it, but Huey can tell that this is Gangstalicious trying to make sure that Riley never exposes his hidden homosexual lifestyle. Riley, who doesn't believe that Gangstalicious is gay, but rather just a punk, has already dismissed Gangstalicious' sexuality in his mind, but things start to change when Gangstalicious comes out with a new song called Homies Over Hoes and a new clothing line that, let's just say, doesn't exactly scream masculine gangster rapper. Riley, being a very impressionable young kid, starts to wear the new clothes and listen to the new music, which makes Granddad and the people around Riley think that Riley might be gay too. This all culminates with Gangstalicious being exposed by a music video hoe, which, yes, was a real thing back in the 2000s, for being...
He was so unbelievably gay. So unbelievably gay?
Gay?
And when Riley finally confronts Gangstalicious about this, we get one of the saddest moments in the series. While a great song called Rock and Roll Gangsta by Alan plays in the background, Gangstalicious pulls up to Thugnificent's mansion to do a record together. They end up hiding from Gangstalicious so that they don't have to do the song with him. Gangstalicious realizes this, calls his manager and tells him that he thinks his career is all over. And just as this happens, Riley confronts him and asks him straight up if he's gay or not. Gangstalicious takes a moment to think if he can really tell Riley, this kid who might be the last person on earth who still looks up to him, his deepest secret. And ultimately, he decides to continue living a lie. Since this episode, there have been several rappers and singers who have come out as gay or bisexual. Some of them were exposed via sex tapes, some of them came out willingly. But as the world has progressed, it's become more and more acceptable for anyone, even rappers who are supposed to be the toughest, most masculine men on the planet, to be a little gay. The story of Gangstalicious is supposed to be a tragedy. And after part 1, I'm not sure if that tragedy was fully felt. But after part 2, yeah, you can definitely feel how miserable of a life it must be to have to constantly live a lie. As the song says, you're living your life in a glass cage. The newspapers, they don't like the things you say and do on stage. Your influence on today's youth, they say it's all wrong. Is that why every word you utter is a million-seller song? And that's Season 2 of the Boondocks. Is it the incredibly layered, ingenious social commentary chocked full of powerful short stories and character arcs that make you want to go back and analyze every detail? No. That was Season 1. Season 2 is simply funny as and that's okay. That's all I originally expected from the show in the first place anyway. Sure, Season 2 still has some of those deeper moments sprinkled in here and there, but that was clearly not the writer's focus when they wrote this season. I think they just wanted to be funny and entertaining. And if you can't tell by now, I think they achieved that pretty well. Sometimes the best thing you can be in life is open-minded, open to the possibility of change, open to the possibility of disappointment, open to laughing instead of crying. Season 1 of the Boondocks is an amazing and unforgettable piece of art that evokes so many different emotions and thoughts for me. Season 2 just makes me laugh. And in troubled times, a good laugh can be all you need.